the Gothmonkeys Darkplace Rewatch podcast for the last time. This is something coming back. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
I do have one kind of bit of news.
Oh, what about this time?
It's the X-Files again.
Okay.
And this was a website I've never actually heard of before called TV Line.
Okay.
And they just had their 15 best episodes of the X-Files ranked. So I thought, how's that compared to what we said?
Okay, how does it compare?
So, mostly, it's very similar, but it veers off into some weird places.
Okay.
So, number 15, they've got The Unnatural.
Yeah, fair.
Number 14, How the Ghost Stole Christmas, which I don't think we actually rated that high, but it could be fun. Number 13 is the controversial one, The Postmodern Prometheus, which we sort of said, get out of here.
It does have a lot of fans.
It does, and it's one of those whole, if it wasn't for the bedrock of the episode, it'd be wonderful. Unfortunately, it's kind of baked into it. Musings of a Cigarette Smoking Man.
Musings is great.
Paper Hearts.
Yep.
Number 10 is Triangle, which we didn't rate.
No.
But a lot of people do like that one, we know.
Yeah.
Number 9 is Pusher.
Only at 9? What's wrong with these people?
I've heard them. Number 8, and this is a surprise, Filet Deux.
Oh, I like Foley.
That's what do I, but people don't seem to like it that much,
No.
do they? Number 7 is Ice. It is a very competent thing, rip-off, but...
Yeah, Ice is good.
Number 6 is Squeeze.
Okay, only at 6th. I would have placed that higher.
Yeah. Number 5, I think, is one of the weirder ones, though, but I think it's because of, if you're a certain kind of fan, Memento Mori.
Which one is Memento Mori?
That's the one where Scully knows she's got cancer and Mulder breaks into that place with the bulletproof glass with the long gun.
Yeah, I understand why it's on the list, but no, I wouldn't put it that high.
So you could probably guess the remainder, but not necessarily the order. So
you got Jose Chung in there somewhere.
Number 4 is Home.
Okay.
Number 3 is Jose Chung from Outer Space.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Bad Blood.
So number 1's Clive Bruckman?
Clive Barker is number 1, as usual.
Oh yeah, I'd agree.
I don't really think it's specifically interesting. It's just, I thought it was interesting how, it matches kind of our kind of thoughts for a lot of it. There are just some weird, odd exceptions in there.
I still believe that you can't rank the funny X-Files episodes and the serious ones in the same list.
No, which is why
otherwise,
we about.
Much like that, it gets dominated by the funny episodes.
Exactly. But yes, I think that's it in terms of news for stuff. I don't think Gothmonkeys YouTube has anything new of late.
Not that I've noticed.
No, and we know Twin Peaks is never going to get anything ever again. Okay, so I guess we've got to go to Romford for one last time.
The mean streets of Romford.
So we are on the last episode of Gothmonkeys Darkplace, The Creeping Moss from the Shores of Shoggoth. First broadcast on the 4th of March 2004. Guest stars, they've been in previous episodes, there's no one desperately new. For some reason, our lady infected by the Creeping Moss isn't listed as a guest star, so I don't know who she is.
That's a bit sad.
It is a little bit. The Wikipedia page for Darkplace is actually really bad. It's very, very, very lacking detail. Because as we made the point at the start, we don't know what the Edinburgh Fringe versions of Darkplace actually entail.
No, it's going to be one of life's big mysteries. Unless anybody who happens to have seen it at the Fringe can just shed a light on this for us.
Because we are generally curious as to what happened to them. One thing I did miss out from last week is Paul King, the guest star who directed All the Mighty Boosh and Paddington.
Okay, yeah.
He directed the Edinburgh Fringe versions of Darkplace.
Oh, okay.
So both of those were him before Richard Ayoade took over for the actual TV version.
Oh, curious.
Yeah. But anyway, would you like to tell us about this moss from Shoggoth?
I can certainly cry. No, I can't.
You can cry as well.
Our episode opens this time, or at least our episode within an episode of Darkplace, as we see an orderly who we've seen in at least one previous episode, wheeling a woman in a gurney down the corridor. We later learn that this woman is called Linda. He stops to take a leak, leaving Linda under an air vent, which we see some kind of green miasma flowing out of. By the time he comes back, there is some kind of green plant-like matter growing on Linda's hands. We then cut to Douglas, Sanchez and Liz driving into work, with Douglas already tetchy because no one has said thank you for the lift. The tensions just rise throughout this little ride, with particularly Sanchez and Douglas getting at each other's throats a bit. They arrive in the ward to learn of Linda's predicament. It's quickly revealed that this miasma is some kind of alien race coming from another planet that's infecting people on the ward. Particularly Sanchez begins to get very close to Linda very quickly, and it results in a heavily, heavily implied sexual relationship between the two of them, which later becomes text rather than subtext. We cut to Reed and Douglas discussing this, where it's revealed that the alien plant illness is rapidly turning Linda into broccoli. There is no cure for this and it will invariably fatal, and they've also learnt that the illness is sexually transmitted and has a 50% chance of having passed on to Sanchez. Douglas confronts Sanchez in the Drip, their local bar, to try and ascertain if he's had sex with the woman, and also try and put him off. He doesn't have the heart to tell Sanchez that Linda is dying, so instead tries to make out the fact that Linda doesn't want to see him anymore. This results in a very, very brief fight, which is eventually broken up by Thornton Reed walking into the bar and firing off a few rounds from a shotgun into the ceiling. They reconvene back at Darkplace Hospital in Thornton Reed's office, at which point it is revealed indeed that the illness has spread to Sanchez's penis, and the only way to save him is to amputate it urgently. The following few scenes of footage have been lost, sadly, but are told by a voiceover from Thornton Reed over Polaroid photographs, in which we see them wrestling down and sedating Sanchez as Linda's condition grows worse. Ultimately, it is just Liz and Douglas who are at Linda's bedside as she passes away, leaving a dream catcher for Sanchez. Douglas then meets up with Sanchez, who is very grateful for Douglas for saving his life and insists he keeps the dream catcher. Douglas also declares that he will make it his life's mission now to find a replacement penis for Sanchez. Our episode ends on the roof of Darkplace as Douglas looks out once again morosely over the mean streets of Romford, and we see the dreamcatcher that he'd been given is now hanging from the radio antenna.
Thank you. This episode was kind of weird because it felt
kind of weird.
Well, no.
Darkplace.
No. I mean, in terms of obviously, but in terms of, it feels like an actual episode of something in a way the other 5 haven't.
Explain.
I don't know. It's a kind of a quality to how the episode's put together. It feels like, in a way that the other episodes were really amateurish and stop-start with the plot. This one actually kind of has a cohesive plot. It's insane, but it actually fits together properly. It doesn't have any kind of the very jarring shunts into action sequences. I think some of that could be because the footage is missing.
Yes, that's true. The only bit that's really janky is the missing reel.
Yeah. But the rest of it actually feels like it's an actual episode of something that you'd watch. It's made choices you would not make, but you can see it actually existing in that form in a way that the other ones... Okay, or put another way, it's like they've had 5 episodes. I mean, they're meant to have hundreds of episodes, but they've had 5 episodes to get to grips with how to make a TV show. And this is the one where they've actually got it. They've actually understood how to do it properly, and they've then been cancelled. Even though we found out this one is actually the week after Scotch Mist, from a throwaway line.
Yes, there is one throwaway line that comments that the green mist from Shoggoth is retreating in a similar way to the Scotch Mist did previously.
Smooth, very smooth. But I mean, would you agree on that one? It's like, it's more of an actual episode of a TV series than anything else has been.
Yeah, you can see it structured a bit more like a hospital drama this time, of the worsening illness then spreading to a staff member. A bit like there's the episode of House early on where Foreman contracts the brain-eating amoeba from a patient, and that works in a similar kind of structure, where you have a patient who suddenly dies, then Foreman starts showing the same symptoms, and they work around the clock to figure out what was wrong with him.
Wasn't it rabies? Or was it...
No, he's had rabies too.
Okay, twice.
There's one where they have a patient who dies and they think he's got something contagious, so they can't do an autopsy. But then Foreman has the same symptoms, and it's all the red tape because they need... House is suspicious it's the brain-eating amoeba, but isn't allowed to do the autopsy to prove it on this patient because of the risk of it being a disease that would spread rapidly.
Okay.
But yeah, ultimately, Foreman survives a pathogen that is usually fatal because it's house.
Yeah, well,
But
he's always in the series.
Yeah.
But no, I'd accept that. I mean, there is still a whole load of cop show nonsense in here, but yes, it is more of a medical show than it has been. That's possibly more what's triggering the sense this actually makes sense as an episode.
Yeah.
There's a throwaway line from Garth Marenghi in it, which makes me wonder if he read, or Matthew Holness read, an interview with Ian Banks that was in SFX, like in the early 90s.
Okay.
And
so, Ian Banks, do you want to say who he is in case people don't know?
Ian Banks is a Scottish author who had an interesting gimmick, shall we say, in that he would publish books, contemporary fiction, under the name of Ian Banks. He would also write sci-fi under Ian M. Banks. And if you've seen Hot Fuzz, there's a running joke in that film where the twins, played by Will Bailey, one of them will exclusively read Ian Banks novels, and one exclusively reads Ian M. Banks, and that's how you tell them apart. Until the reveal at the end. Very highly regarded.
Yeah, and his most famous work is probably one of his contemporary ones, which is called The Wasp Factory.
Yes.
See, he wrote one of my teenage years' favourite books, which is The Player of Games, which is, I think, the second book in his Culture series.
Now, you might be saying, why are you bringing this up? The throwaway line from Garth Marenghi, though, is he talks that he primarily writes horror, but he's also written westerns and erotica. Ian Banks, in this interview, which is in one of the very early issues of SFX, mentions that he considers starting writing westerns under Ian X Banks.
Ah.
So I don't know if that's a very obscured reference to Ian Banks' career.
Just before Ian Banks passed away, well, you went with me, we actually went to a book signing and he signed my book with the wrong initial.
Yes.
So I do have a copy of, I think it was his final contemporary novel that he wrote, that says Ian M. Banks and he's just written whoops underneath it.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
It has come up in episodes before, but this is the first time they actually made use of it, is the infamous state of Doctor Who, which is what that missing real thing is basically referenced to. It could, I don't think Grindhouse, I think Grindhouse hadn't been out yet, so it's not a joke for Grindhouse, but it's the Grindhouse way of things, of you've lost part of the film. And there's nothing you can do to recover it, so you've got to patch it together as best you can.
Yeah.
And Doctor Who, if you've missed the previous episodes, Doctor Who infamously, one of the weird quirks is that some of the episodes are missing and the footage was just discarded because they saw no need for it. Perplexingly, they have audio of every single Doctor Who episode ever broadcast because some people just taped it off the TV. And this has been used to reconstruct episodes with either animation or still photos. I mean, it used to be fan reconstruction efforts with still photos with the audio. I think these days they're using the audio and then they've got an animated sequence to go over the top of it to put it back into some kind of watchability. So I don't think there's actually many episodes that are completely gone in the same way anymore. There's a way to watch almost everything.
It used to be predominantly back in the kind of Patrick Taunton era.
It was particularly him, wasn't it? William Hartnell they actually had a good chunk of, but him his stock was decimated for some reason. When you've done your summaries of Darkplace, you usually try to actually sort of go for the actual horror aesthetic.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to make them sound serious.
Unfortunately, this one involves broccoli, and I don't think you can do it, really.
It's a delicious way to go.
That's maybe. We'll quickly say, before we jump onto other horror things, is we'd completely forgotten that Stephen Merchant has a cameo in this episode.
Oh, as does, I forget the actor's name.
Julian Barrett.
Yeah, Julian Barrett from Boosh.
Yeah, as the Padre, who's still in this series for no particular reason. But Stephen Merchant was just, Linda dies having transformed into broccoli, and then the chefs show up to take her away to boil her.
I love that boiling her is the solution. It's the first thing Douglas hits on is, the only way to stop this from spreading is we've got to boil her.
The Padre says you could steam her.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that either. I was an absolute hoot. I very much enjoyed
The Hippocratic Oath is just a thing in Darkplace, isn't it?
It is. I think it's the I suppose actually that's a bit to get onto as well. Yeah, I like the fact that Sanchez apparently has done this a few times, and I think it might be a nod to House. Because I'm pretty sure Wilson got accused of it at one point in House of sleeping with some of his cancer patients. Being their last...
Oh, Sanchez makes a comment, doesn't it? About
that's what he's done.
The previous patients he slept with were all dying and it was their last wish or something.
And that leads through to Garth Marenghi's self-aggrandizing again, because not only does he have a sick kid at the end of the episode, he's got an entire music video to justify why Liz isn't into Sanchez. And it's an astonishing music video, isn't it? It's like you could put that on MTV in the 80s and you wouldn't blink.
Because I've, as you're aware, been playing through the Yakuza games over the last couple of years on my stream. It made me think of Bakamitai, one of the Yakuza karaoke songs, which is the morose one that's always sung with, like, Kiryu sat at the bar with a whiskey in hand. And that's all I could think of watching it. But yeah, it really, really is an 80s music video they've made.
They replicate the style so well. The absurdity of looking in from inside out of that music video only exists like that because Garth Marenghi is involved, because in no world does Matthew Holness be more attractive than Matt Berry.
Oh, shots fired. Poor old Matthew Holness.
I'm sure Matthew Holness has his admirers, but in the basic, very fundamental, which one looks better on screen?
I do like that, and the commentary of you looked at him almost as much as you looked at me, or whatever he says. But it's Matt Berry is a very good looking guy, and particularly has a really, really nice voice. As well.
Oh yeah, and I think it's even more hilarious that he's been overdubbed by himself. Everything just slightly slides off occasionally.
Yeah.
You do have to question as well, like the Darkplace script. So it's like, how did some of this get in here? As much as it's a case of episode, why do we have this whole Douglas is being really pissy because no one's thanked him for the lift?
It's much like the we've previously had the pube on the pipes one, and the one with the batteries as well.
Yeah.
Just his little petty things.
So what are you doing? It's like an editor would say, "Take this out."
You're not making yourself likable, pal.
No, and it's quite. But given the fact that so much of the series is meant to make him look like the hero, it's like his own, the subtext of his novels, which he doesn't believe in because that's for cowards, completely undermines the point he's trying to make, is that Douglas doesn't come across as that heroic.
I'm assuming it's because Garth Marenghi is so assured of himself and so assured that he is like a sex icon, perfect human being, most intelligent man on the planet, is he just thinks you'll agree with him.
Yes. So he is completely right to be snippy about no one thanking him for a lift.
And you as the viewer should be thinking, you're right, everyone should have thought Douglas, they are terrible friends.
That said, though, his thing with Liz is actually kind of weird, in that sense. Given Liz is completely into him, but he's got no interest in her. That's a really odd situation to put him into.
I quite like that fun little bit in the car where he asks Liz what she's having for dinner and she thinks that he's asking her out. And no, I just want some recipe ideas.
But it's like, that's a really odd thing to do to yourself, because it makes me think of someone's views of the Wheel of Time books.
I've only ever read the first one.
It's not, you don't need to read the other stories.
Okay.
It was a generalised sense of, it's like, the guy was asking, why do people like the Wheel of Time books? And I'm sure for the Wheel of Time fans, you have your reasons. I have read through them all. I didn't exactly enjoy the experience, so I'm more on this guy's wavelength. But his point was, he gets that maybe you work in a mid-range education supplies department and your life is grey. So you like having your fantasy things where you are a mighty warrior surrounded by the scantily clad women who all fawn over you.
Interestingly, I was listening to a podcast that made a similar point the other day, and I will cite it here. The podcast is called Rattled and Shook. It's a kind of horror true stories podcast, but they had a guest presenter called Kate, who has a romantasy focused podcast that I've never heard of before called DT Faye. But the point she was making on the show is the fact that a lot of people look down on the romance, and particularly the kind of supernatural romance genre, because they think there's something lesser about it. And her whole argument was, I live a boring humdrum life. If I want to live out that fantasy that for some reason the King of the Fae has seen me and wants me and only has one eyes for me, why make fun of that? Why can I not have my fantasy? Which I thought was actually a really good point.
It is. I mean, this is the operative thing between why people make fun of the Mary Sue in the first place, and Twilight more specifically, is this all geared around the same kind of mechanics.
I've got to admit, I went through a stage of reading a lot of young adult novels, and at first I made fun of the concept of Twilight too, and one of my friends said, you can't make fun of it till you've read it. Fair enough, complete argument, so I read the entire thing. And I will go on the basis of, I'm not a Twilight fan, this is not my bag, but at the same time, I have read what came after Twilight, the worst things that, were inspired by Twilight and tried to run with a similar concept, and Twilight is a masterpiece by comparison.
Yeah, which is kind of alarming to if you've never actually engaged with this kind of area.
Mm.
But anyway, the whole point is that, yes, these are flights of fantasy, and you understand wanting to adapt this just to escape from your humdrum life. Completely understandable. Where the Wheel of Time guy got kind of sort of losing patience or got hung up on was the narrative stalls in the Wheel of Time for an enormous length of time. It's like, while this is true, nothing's happening in the story. And in this case, though, where Garth Marenghi has created Rick Douglas, his personified sexy guy, is that, yeah, he's got Liz coming on to him, but then he's not doing anything with her. He's spurning her, which is a whole complicated thing, which then links more into how something I once read about romance novels is the Arab sheik or someone has taken a liking to you, the white woman on holiday or whatever.
Or King of the Fae, like we were just saying.
Or King of the Fae. But one of the tricks in a lot of these novels is the woman has to sort of say no first or dismiss them, and then they've got to be pursued. And the psychological component of that is something like it makes them work more for it, and also you don't perceive you as deserving it at the start of the novel, then they've got to work up to why you have it at the end of the novel.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't just be handed to it, it has to be justified and built up to before you actually accept it.
In my head, this feels really toxic because it leads into a bit of the kind of 90s thought of if the girl turns you down, you have to keep pursuing her.
Yes, I mean, we can also say that a lot of media has not done this in the best of ways, and it is reflecting those terrible attitudes, which leads to too many 90s and early 2000s romantic comedies that you rewatch these and go, whoa, what are you doing, man? This is insane.
Bit toxic, pal.
Yeah, just she said no, move on. So, but anyway, my point is, though, that this being Garth Marenghi's kind of fancy, him dismissing Liz is absolutely bizarre. Because I don't think what psychology is going on there, because it's not just the kind of fancy fulfillment where it'd be, yes, Liz, we'll go out tonight and we'll do the music video that Sanchez has just imagined, but for real.
Yeah.
But then it's not also, she's got to build up to it, because it's just a flat, no, I'm not actually interested in you, I just want the recipe ideas. It's like, that's a really complicated psychological state to be in.
Maybe it's just setting herself on a pedestal above Sanchez even further, because it's the fact that Sanchez is doing everything he can to get Liz's attention. She's just not interested in him. Liz is interested in you, but you're not interested in her because you're that level above Sanchez.
I can go with that. That is a level of narcissism, though. That's really
but you are
far-flung.
bearing in mind that in Garth Marenghi's eyes, he is the alpha. He is absolute S-rank human.
I know. At the same time, though, surely your fantasies would engage in actually getting the girl, and that's what you're playing.
Well, we know he's straight as well, because he's got his wife and his 4 girls that he doesn't resent her for.
Exactly. I mean, I can think of, it'd be fascinating to hear the creators actually work through why he acts like this. It's like, is this his his subconscious completely undermining the point he wants to make, or making a different point to what he thought he was making?
Some of our points within this episode as well are all concerning Garth writing erotica. So we get his opening little dialogue this time where he's reading from one of his books. It's very, very Clive Barker of a couple getting naked, and there's a bit where he rips his entire outfit, including his shoes, off in one motion or something.
It's her shoes and panties in one motion.
Shoes and panties in one motion, that's it. And they have this really, really kind of embarrassing sequence which involves with them collapsing on the sofa bed.
Yeah.
At which point a hellhound eats them.
I love this thing.
But they also have a bit halfway through the episode too where Dean Lerner and Garth are talking about how the art of writing a sex scene has been lost.
The words you should not use. The 3 words you should not use in a sex scene.
Oh, I can't remember what they are now.
It was like,
knickers is one of them.
Yeah, it might have been balls.
Balls, knickers and scrote.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. That's the only word you should avoid, apparently. And then it's him and Dean Lerner just sort of playing off each other with the better way to describe a sex scene.
Yeah.
And it's like
something like her dusky mound or something like that. But
Garth, I want to nominate Garth for the Bad Sex Award. I think he'd win it.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Oh, yeah, I've read the erotica. The erotica it's in the first one, isn't it? What was his first book? It's not Incarcerate.
It's
Terratome.
Terratome.
I think it's in the first segment of Terratome as well. There is a passage he was supposedly forced to omit because it was too graphic, and then he's added it back in the appendix so you can read his erotica in full.
But I suppose this is one of the more Clive Barker derived episodes, at least the start is. And then there's possibly a bit of Ian Banks, we're not sure. It's possible that's just coincidence, but it's closer than I'd think. But then we have to talk about the person whose shadow casts long and dark and full of tentacles across this one.
Yeah, you can tell even from the title that our big take on this episode is the kind of forefather of cosmic horror.
Yeah.
We could call him HP Lovecraft.
HP Lovecraft. I honestly didn't remember them just putting Shoggoth in the title because that's just really not trying anymore.
I thought it was Yuggoth, to be honest. But then again, Yuggoth is a world used, I think, by HP Lovecraft, or at least by Derleth or some of the ones that came after him.
I think it's a Lovecraft creation.
It's like the 13th planet or something, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think Yuggoth, though, is... I think in like 2004, the chances of you knowing what a Shoggoth is pretty good. You know what Yuggoth is to the general public is not. So I think that's why they went with Shoggoth, but in realistic terms, it should have been Yuggoth.
So people haven't encountered the Shoggoth. It's protoplasmic entity that often when you see it depicted in media is kind of like a jellyfish-like creature covered in eyes.
Yeah.
You often see it. It appears in the Mountains of Madness, I think, though?
Yes. It's actually meant to be a rubbery spheroid, but it's actually meant to be a shapeshifter.
Mm.
And there are the Shoggoth Lords, which are the more advanced versions of them.
In Mountains of Madness, it's known for its maddening cry of Tekali Kali. I remember that.
And the narrator does briefly glimpse one when they're escaping.
Yes, I believe the narrator gets off quite mildly, but the man who sees it more clearly is driven entirely mad by the sight.
Yeah, although I actually know what the co-pilot sees, we never find out because he glances back through the mist.
Yeah, I always assumed it was the Shoggoth.
His ramblings seemed to indicate that because there's something beyond the city that the old ones fear, that they're very, very cagey about what that was, and it's kind of inferred that that's what he saw.
To briefly explain, the entire thing is about, it's an Antarctic expedition, isn't it? Where they find a kind of ancient city beneath the ice that was not made by humans, let us say.
Yes.
But the story is one of Lovecraft's better known and kind of most highly regarded short stories.
Yes, and it's been adapted into lots of comic forms. We're sadly never going to get the Guillermo del Toro film version we were kind of promised.
Mm.
And that Hellboy 3 might have been partly inspired by. Because there's the alternate ending to Hellboy 2, which involves Rasputin coming back.
True, yes.
Because that's in the Antarctic, I think.
But the works of H.P. Lovecraft himself was a monster, and we don't like to think about it. He was a terrible, terrible human. I think nobody these days condones Lovecraft. But the advantage of the mythos being in the public domain is that subsequently people have done a lot more interesting things with it, basically.
Yes. Grimbeard, who I keep referring to just because he makes a lot of interesting points.
Mm.
There's a video game called Iru, which is about some Japanese high schoolers on the night before a festival. And it gets very Lovecraftian.
Okay.
And there's a spawn of Cthulhu can show up at the end if you do the wrong thing. But he made the point of, it's really kind of weird that of all the people, the Japanese are kind of like the least people Lovecraft would have been comfortable doing anything with his mythos, and they've just embraced it wholeheartedly.
Well, you also have the novel Lovecraft Country,
yes,
which came out recently, which both addressed Lovecraft's racism and kind of put the mythos in a kind of American setting where racism was actual central to the plot and not just because it was written by a horrible racist.
Yeah. It's really odd that what's been done to Lovecraft, because you can't salvage many things, but I think a lot of it's because when you ignore a few of the problematic stories, because I think Gail Simone does not give Lovecraft any grace, doesn't like Lovecraft stories entirely because of the racism.
Mm.
Other people have sort of said, we've worked around it, we're going to ignore that part, we just want the cosmic horror part. And her argument is usually, but it all stems from the same place. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because the argument it uses right at the start of Lovecraft Country is actually the Mountains of Madness, because the Shoggoths are a slave race.
Yes.
He's trying to explain the story to his uncle, who's kind of saying, so they're slaves. And, it's the dawning point where the narrator of the story is actually realising it's just here. It's kind of rotten to the core.
Yes.
Mm.
But then you have people who do weird and interesting things like Bloodborne would not exist as it does without Lovecraft.
Neither would The Thing.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, I know some people who really don't like you pointing out that it got Lovecraft's fingerprints all over it, but I think John Carpenter is definitely not averse to it, because In the Mouth of Madness doesn't make much sense if you take Lovecraft out of the equation.
No, In the Mouth of Madness is even more Lovecraftian than The Thing. But yeah.
There's a wealth of stuff that's derived off of Lovecraft, and they've downplayed the more problematic elements. I mean, you can still, as much as the fish monsters from Shadow of Innsmouth are very much to be representative of race mixing, you still got the absolute horror of interbreeding with fish people, which is just, yeah, it's not comfortable regardless of how you view the fish person.
I'm personally a fan of Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu tabletop games. Particularly during lockdown, I DM'd a lot of these for our gaming group. But again, people have done really interesting things with those. I've seen one set in the Regency era, I've seen one set in ancient Rome. So you're really just taking the kind of cosmic horror elements and putting it in completely different settings to things that Lovecraft has ever considered.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's the notion of forbidding knowledge. It can't be tied down to one thing, so you can use that as a framework to go off into other places that these are places men should not tread.
And also, my personal favourite is the idea of things like books that cannot be read.
Yes.
You have the concept in Lovecraftian that just seeing certain things is enough to send you irreparably insane.
Absolutely. I will make a note here because it's a pop culture mistake about the Necromonicon. The Necromonicon will not send you insane in and of itself. There are versions which are more troubling for you to read than others, but you can read the standard one and it won't do anything to you. You can use it as a reference tome. Because a lot of people take the Necromonicon to be, you open a book, you go mad. That one doesn't do that. Some of the other ones will.
You sound a bit more like you're thinking of The King in Yellow.
Yeah,
the book that irreparably changes people. Because The King in Yellow, I would argue, is more the inspiration for, as we mentioned before, The Mouth of Madness.
Yes.
Because it's the, have you read Sutter Kane? Is very much, people who have read or seen the play of The King in Yellow, and it changes them.
Yes.
Nothing is the same now you have read The King in Yellow.
And you can read all of In the Mouth of Madness on that. But it's still primarily geared, there's a whole load of Lovecraftian stuff in there as well.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly more and more. I mean, there's even, when they go to Hobbs End, it's very much a small Lovecraftian town. You've got a load of the Colour Out of Space in there, for example.
Yes. Again, though, it's interesting that Garth Marenghi has he doesn't understand Lovecraft really at all. He's taken the fringe surface elements of it again. Like, he makes a mention that the Shoggoth cycle is something he wrote when he was 16, and it's really unclear what that actually entailed.
When you see that picture on the front of the Shoggoth cycle as well, it looks kind of like The Dark Young. Did you notice as well?
Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me that basically Garth Marenghi through his Lovecraft phase, but like every other horror he's written, he didn't actually understand any of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just the horrible monster in the woods kind of thing, rather than...
You mean like a certain black goat, for example?
Like a certain black goat, that no depiction has ever made look like a goat, so still not entirely sure why it's called that.
No, I think the more classic look of the black goat in the woods is much like the final boss in the most recent Alone in the Dark game, which again, if you go to my Adverse Camber 42 YouTube channel, I think I cut out my boss fight against it in there somewhere.
And the final boss of Quake.
Oh, is that her as well?
That is her as well. She looks like a melted snowman, which is less terrifying.
There was an episode of Stephen King's Nightmares and Dreamscapes anthology series as well, which was called Crouch End, I think.
That rings a bell. I would say Hobbs End, but it can't be Hobbs End.
No, I think it's Crouch End. But
right.
That they encounter the black goat in that episode as well. That is possibly one of the times I've seen Stephen King be overtly Lovecraftian in things.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting as well that Lovecraft went through a phase of being obscure. We did actually kind of get into this last week with August Deleth, is why we have Lovecraft in the modern day.
Mm.
But one of the interesting is it certainly after Chaosium released the RPG is that it grew to much more mainstream popularity. It's like, I knew what Cthulhu was well before I actually read Call of Cthulhu, and I'm not entirely sure how. But it's there's enough osmosis in pop culture for you to get a lot of Lovecraftian stuff without actually reading it.
There are even Squishmallows that are designed off Cthulhu, for example.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Lovecraft actually gets a lot more homages these days, or people will actually admit that's where things come from. Because there's a quote from Stephen King which is something like, the 20th century's dark prince of horror or something.
Yeah.
Is what he's called him. And it's like, that's probably correct. As much as it's inspired by Poe, Lovecraft went in a really different direction.
You do see some similarities with the work of Poe within Lovecraft. There are similar themes.
Well, To Kill a Lee is a direct reference to Poe.
Okay.
I can't remember, because it's something like the narrator says that's the only way he can make sense of what he's hearing. But I can't remember what the Poe thing is a reference to, but it's a very specific reference to a Poe story.
I think you also get some elements of dualism, because like the facts in the case of Monsieur Valdemar is the Edgar Allan Poe story about doppelgangers, which I think ties into whichever is the one with the Yithians. The Lovecraft names get stuck in my head after a while.
Shadow of Time.
Yeah, where you also have this idea of kind of doubling.
Yes. And for the whole pop culture thing is that's one half of the Call of Cthulhu Xbox game.
Oh, was
Shadow of Time. It's Shadow in Smoke and Shadow of Time kind of mashed together.
Oh, okay.
Well, they kind of it's complicated how they actually do it, but yeah, that's to do with them. That's where that one comes from.
My favourite one was always the one with, I think it's the Shining Trapehedroid, where he becomes obsessed with trying to find this church tower that shouldn't exist.
Haunter in the Dark.
The Haunter in the Dark. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the monster is one of his circle. So one thing about Lovecraft that, again, you might not know if you haven't read this and other notes, is that Lovecraft had a whole load of contemporaries and they used to borrow ideas from each other. One of these was Robert Bloch, the author of Psycho, which is still one of those bits where you go, what, really? It's like, no, yeah, he knew Lovecraft. And I can't remember who the Haunter in the Dark's monster is, but that's deliberately taken from someone else's work and used for a Lovecraft story.
Okay, that's interesting.
None of the rest of them, except for Bloch, obviously, have had quite the kind of longevity, because Bloch has been immortalized thanks to Psycho. And Lovecraft, everything else in these days. All the modern stuff. And, we're mentioning again Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Elden Ring, all very Lovecraftian bits and pieces in there.
Yeah, unquestionably.
Yeah, Bloodborne being the most obvious of them, given the tone, setting, and general aesthetic.
Bloodborne also has that concept of seeing things doesn't do you very well.
Yes.
Grant his eyes, grant his eyes.
Yeah, well, that's the running theme in Lovecraft, is the more you know, the worse off you are. And Bloodborne really powers through that to get its point across. And, a lot of people say it's still one of the best games ever made, even like 10 years after release.
That's one of the mechanic in the tabletop game, as well as sanity, where you can learn about stuff. Probably isn't a good idea to learn about stuff.
Joining us for Lovecraft, because there's the other thing we kind of said we should talk about, that hasn't come up yet.
Before you get on to the obvious other thing, I am also going to cite, because we keep coming back to Stephen King, Creepshow for this episode.
Oh, you did mention that earlier.
Yes, so the original Creepshow is quite long running actually now, because there was also a revival of it on Shudder recently.
I think that was terrible, that one.
It wasn't great, no.
5 of them, I think.
But there were at least 2 Creepshow movies before that. They're anthology horror series. They've got quite a darkly comical bent to them. They're actually really good fun if you go and look for them. But the first one was made in 1982. It was written by Stephen King, but more specifically, it had one segment in it that was based on his short story Weeds. The segment's actually called The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, and starred Stephen King himself playing the title role, which was, and I guess leaning into the colour out of space as well, about a guy who finds a meteorite that's crashed on his property. He interacts with it and gets burned, and slowly kind of plants start growing all over his body. But with the quality of early 80s pulped movies, it does look a lot like the Broccoli Effect in this as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You reminded me as well, though, is in terms of the kind of bigger, more impressive Lovecraft adaptations, the Cloud of Space movie with Nicolas Cage is actually worth watching.
Yeah, it's not a good film, but it's absolutely massively entertaining.
Yes, and I say we also should shout out the HP Lovecraft Historical Society, who, if you've ever encountered them, they do some weird things. Well, not presumably they're actually, I think they're kind of an RPG lot nominally, is what they actually do. But they produced a musical version of a Shoggoth on a Roof. A Shoggoth on the Roof, which is a highly stylized version of Fiddler on the Roof, just with Lovecraftian monsters, which is an absolute hoot to listen to.
It makes more sense if you're a bit familiar with the mythos, so.
Yeah. But when you get familiar with it, though, you sort of listen to it, it's a case of, this is absolutely insane.
I really did like the adaptation they did of Whisper in the Darkness as well.
Yes, as I say, they've done Whisper in the Darkness and Call of Cthulhu as period appropriate films, which is they've tried they're very low budget, but basically they tried to make the films as they would have been as a contemporary to when Lovecraft wrote them.
Which was the 1930s?
Yes. So they in black and white, they've deliberately done them as low tech as they can. There's obviously some modern technology they've had to use to get things into position, but they're both reasonably well entertaining.
Yeah.
They work very well and better than any other film called Call of Cthulhu you'll find, which, for reference, is 99% of the time just Shadow of the Innsmouth, because it always is Shadow of the Innsmouth.
Sometimes with a bit of Dagon thrown in.
Sometimes with a bit of Dagon, but any film called Call of Cthulhu, except for theirs, is going to be Shadow of Innsmouth.
Yeah, it's true, which is a completely different Lovecraftian story.
It doesn't involve Cthulhu whatsoever.
No.
There's another horror thing in the running, which is more of a quintessentially British thing, even though it's more obscure even in the British culture. It's like people should know it more than they do, and it's really highly regarded, but it's also overlooked because everyone else has done it as well. Not usually better, but everyone else has done it more recently, I think, is the problem, isn't it?
I think it's you don't normally know. So we're talking about Quatermass, but you don't normally know of Quatermass. You know of things that were inspired by Quatermass.
Yeah. So there are 4 Quatermass things, though. For this, we're going to just focus on the first 3, because the fourth one, I don't think people haven't been inspired by it in the same way.
I've never seen the fourth one, I must admit.
Neither have I. I've only read the novelization of it. I didn't realise that's what it was when I picked it up. But So, the Quatermass experiment, you know better as Spider-Man 3, the Venom plotline, or Species 2, just the entire film. This is astronauts go into space, encounter something up there that infects one crew member and kills the others. He comes back to Earth, starts mutating. They've got to get rid of him and destroy him in some way. That was Quatermass experiment in the 1950s, which was also done in a really strange way to us these days. You
could possibly also cite Alien in there, which has the same plot.
One of the weirdest things about all the Quatermass TV versions, though, is they were, and this is really odd, they were performed live. And by this, what I mean is they were broadcast live, they were being performed live. As the series went on, they added more and more pre-filmed sequences because some of the special effects were a bit too complicated to do that. But they were just performed live on TV, and the only versions we have are because people recorded a TV monitor when the signal was going out. For reference, the original Quatermass is only 2 of the 6 episodes have survived to date. There is a film version that Hammer Horror did, and there's a revival from the early 2000s. I haven't seen either of them. I've only seen the original 2 episodes.
The Hammer Horror one's okay.
Okay, that's good. But I think it's the best way of experiencing the whole plot. Quatermass 2, you know better as Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Or The Puppet Masters, I think, is the Heinlein novel. And if you know what Invasion of the Body Snatchers are, you know how the rest of it works.
Nick will disagree with me, but I think Quatermass 2 is the best one, if you're looking for it as well.
I mean, it's not a hard disagreement, though, because it's just... And we come to Quatermass and the Pit, which is the one I do prefer the most. But Quatermass and the Pit, you know better as the Tommyknockers. Stephen King owes them quite a lot. There's probably some other examples, though. They're not as numerous for Quatermass and the Pit, are they?
No. So this is the one where people begin excavating something that drives them a bit up the wall, and it turns out to be a buried UFO.
Yes. They find an artifact that's buried they think it's an exploded bomb, but it's below archaeological layers and it shouldn't be where it is. And the most odd and obvious example is the Tommyknockers. Though, as a mutual friend of us pointed out, is that every single Quatermass series has a similarly matched Doctor Who series.
True, yes.
But no, I mean, they are worth watching. I think there's a Hammer Horror version of all 3 of the original series.
I'm not sure about Quatermass 2, but there's a version of the Pit, yeah.
But you can get the original, what exists of the original ones on DVD and Blu-ray. Really excellently done stuff, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It's essential. If you're a fan of sci-fi horror, I couldn't recommend Quatermass more. You do have to be aware that it's of the times, though, because they were produced 50s, I think?
They're all black and white. I think they're all 50s and possibly early 60s, the absolute latest.
So don't be expecting kind of modern production values and things like that.
But they do good with what they've got.
For the time it was made, yeah, they were really impressive.
I don't know if he was inspired by Lovecraft. I think it's not impossible, but I think he either was directly taken from Lovecraft or something else rooted past Lovecraft and got to him that way, and he took inspiration from it. But
It's certainly cosmic horror, anyway.
it is cosmic horror. It's too close to be completely unrelated.
Mm.
But yeah, the actual broccoli infection, that's very Quatermass 1. Less so the other two. And yeah, I don't think Garth paid much attention to either of them. I think that's the coming to the end of the series, that's the thing I take away most from it is Marenghi has probably watched like every horror thing that has ever come out, but like his aversion to subtext, has never actually bothered to think about them any more than the surface level thing. Because I think it's like that brain skull slushing thing with Mike Flanagan.
Oh, Flanagan.
Like Flanagan, where it's his thought process is just a scary monster, or like the hellhound eating the couple of stuff they've had sex.
Yeah.
And Flanagan is just sort of say, but you know, even with that kind of very basic horror, the Dean Koontz school of horror, you could say, because that feels very much how he does things.
Dean Koontz liked Frankenstein.
Just because you like it doesn't mean you understand it, though, does it?
Yes, just to summarise Dean Koontz in general, Dean Koontz liked Frankenstein. Okay. There's a reason why Dean Koontz is portrayed as being a 7-year-old in
Midnight
Society. Yeah.
But I do get it. I imagine it's got to be part of the point is that he's familiar with everything and has never interrogated any further. And his subconscious is working overtime to try and put meanings into his story. And he's battling his own subconscious to make it as flat and uninteresting as possible.
It should be noted that you can only write satire like this if you're really, really familiar with horror, which Matthew Holness is. Matthew Holness is a real horror aficionado. He has watched a lot of horror and he understands horror, which is how he can write someone as terrible as Garth Marenghi.
It feels baffling, though, the fact that you'd have to be that familiar to make him bounce off the surface of everything.
But we do have to keep reminding people that Garth is not Matthew Holness. Matthew Holness directed Possum.
Yes.
Which is incredibly artful horror.
Well, I mean, it must be a bit like Richard Ayoade having to act badly. And you noticed to me again, he slipped up again in this episode and started acting again, which is such a weird problem to have in a series.
It was his rap in the song, which, to be fair, is an awful rap, but it wasn't Thornton Reed awful.
No. It reminds me of this, like, in the English cast, sometimes got satires or examples of people who've deliberately broken writing rules. And your English teacher will always stress to you, it's like, they've got away with this because they know what they're doing. You have to use the rules for now until you understand it to the extent they do, because they know what they're doing. And if you try and replicate what they're doing, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
And so someone who tried to make a fast version of Darkplace, I don't even want to know what it's going to look like, because it's going to be unwatchable, basically. Whatever it was. And I don't think... But unfortunately, it sank without a trace, and no one has ever decided to try and do a cash-in of Darkplace or anything.
Thankfully not.
Thankfully not. Do we have anything else for Darkplace? I mean, there's no point doing our best episodes because there's so few of them.
I'm trying to think what my favourite episode of Darkplace would be now.
Well, I think it's this one's my favourite for actual narrative cohesion, but The Apes of Wrath is probably the funniest.
The Apes of Wrath is really funny, but I also really, really belly laugh. Hell Have Fury.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Because
Stephen Merchant.
Stephen Merchant in that, it's the hardest I laughed when rewatching this.
It's hard to sort of get over, son of a bitch.
Are we in agreement that Skipper the Eye Child is the worst episode?
Yep, absolutely.
Great. That was easy. Our episode somehow went really fast.
So, next time, all change, complete tonal whiplash. We're going back to Vancouver, because we can't
Hooray, Canada!
Vancouver. We are going back to the frozen north. This is, of course, Twin Peaks, the televisual series that everyone forgets was a smash success at the time, but has just kind of sunk into weird semi-obscurity. Like, people know of it, but I don't think people really remember what happened in it.
True, yes.
But, you know, this was like one of the big things of the 90s, and that just feels alien to people, that you get people to watch something this weird. Then Dark Shadows endlessly fascinates me by how that happened. I don't want to watch it, because apparently it's actually quite tedious to sit through, and season 2 introduces vampires.
I think of it in the terms of, if you look at some of our long-running British soap operas, like EastEnders, it's one family has just suddenly revealed to be werewolves or something like that in the middle of it.
It's like one of those whole, why can't we have this?
Yeah.
I know American soaps work on a very different mindset to the English soap.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we're never going to get it, but it is a shame. Next time, we're going to watch the modified pilot of Twin Peaks. So we did discuss this, and we're going to hold off watching the original pilot to the end. just because of how weirdly complicated Twin Peaks becomes with how it refers to that one episode. Because what they do to it is actually kind of weird.
Personally, I'd like to focus on one as well so I don't start getting the two pilots mixed up, I think.
That's fair. So next, but also we're going to try this at one episode at a time, because Twin Peaks, I think, is one of the more dense things we're ever going to tackle.
I think it'll seem easy at first, but it's going to get a lot more complicated as we go on.
Well, now let's be clear on this one as well, though. It's going to be more complicated, and then we're going to get to the midpoint of season 2 and really going to struggle to say anything, because that's going to be a very bad phase. And then you get to the end of season 2, everything picks up again.
But we'll be approaching this in the same way as we did the X-Files, so this is a rewatch podcast. We won't be inferring to things that happen. We'll be treating it as it goes. And unlike this Garth Marenghi, which has just been a bit of fun, we will be actually analysing the episodes properly and not just going off on tangents about HP Lovecraft.
Yes. But yeah, well, there's lots to say about Twin Peaks. There's a lot to say about the cast. A lot to say about why it was constructed the way it did, and the explanation for why season 3 is like that when we get to it, which I understand where they're coming from. Doesn't make it necessarily very fun to watch, but we'll get to that.
I gave up halfway through. The end of that season is going to be a wild ride for me.
Yeah, for more than one reason. Because I have watched all of it, and it's...
So at least you get me legitimately in the state of nature for the second half of season 3.
I'm going to be interested to watch your reactions to this.
And of course, we will also watch Firewalk with Me.
Yes, I think, on that note, we will try and do things chronologically for release. So it's going to be season 1, season 2, Firewalk with Me, the deleted scenes from Firewalk with Me, because there's an hour and a half of these things.
The Diary of Laura Palmer.
Diary of Laura Palmer, season 3, and then, if we feel up to it, video games have Twin Peaks influence, because that's a kind of curious one.
Oh, that'll be fun.
If you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsgettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please hook me up if you've got any news regarding any fan things you're doing concerning the X-Files, Twin Peaks, or Garth Marenghi. You can find us on Blue Sky and Tumblr at GetStrange42, or on Facebook by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast, which I really should change the title of. Put a pin in that, but that's what you can find us as for the time being. Additionally, if you're not sick of my voice right now, I do stream live on Twitch TV under the name AdverseCamber42, Mondays and Wednesdays at 8pm GMT and Saturdays at 5pm GMT. I am currently playing Yakuza 6 The Song of Life and Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, both on PlayStation 4, and this coming Sunday I will be starting Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle in Flesh on Steam.
Our theme music is envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find them on Compotech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
Come to Padre, embrace the infinite.